Hi, my name is Dr. Megan Price, and I'm a postdoctoral research associate in the Department of Politics and International Relations at the University of Sheffield. This is a video abstract for the paper Regime of Torture, Guantánamo Bay's ongoing detention and prosecutions of the CIA's rendition, detention, and interrogation prisoners, co-authored by myself and Professor Ruth Blakeley, also of the University of Sheffield. In this paper, we examine the effects of ongoing detention and trial upon the 13 former CIA rendition, detention, and interrogation prisoners who remain at the US-run Guantánamo Bay military prison. Operational between 2001 and 2010, the CIA RDI program involved the kidnap, incommunicado detention, and years of torture of at least 119 men across a global network of secret CIA prisons. While many details about the program have emerged, it remains shrouded in secrecy. The 2014 Senate Select Committee Intelligence Report is the most in-depth study of the program, yet we only have access to the executive summary. The full 6,000-page committee report remains classified. Secrecy around CIA torture coincides with the near-complete absence of accountability. High-level officials and contractors have been shielded from the threat of prosecution for their roles in authorizing and overseeing the program. While senior US officials have been prepared to condemn CIA torture, they also convey the overall impression that US torture in the War on Terror was an aberration, temporarily and in terms of the breadth of institutional complicity. This paper challenges that narrative by showing how the overt physical torture of the CIA RDI program has morphed into a more diffuse and bureaucratized system, which we call the regime of torture. This regime of torture keeps the victims of the CIA program incommunicado as long as possible and prevents evidence of the worst excesses of CIA torture from ever coming to light. In making this argument, our account also challenges the way IR literature has tended to depict US torture in the post-9/11 era. Constructivist norms theorists produced a considerable volume of work on US torture in the so-called War on Terror, in part because it differed significantly from what the US had done in the past. During the Cold War, US torture and sponsorship of torture occurred covertly, and it was sealed off from institutions associated with upholding the rule of law. In contrast, after 9/11, the White House and the CIA went to extraordinary lengths to gain legal authorization for torture, and to some extent, to publicly legitimate torture. Norms theorists have tended to identify substantial pushback against this action from domestic and international actors and from within and outside the administration. Such contestation was associated with major reversals, like the closure of the CIA black sites and the mandating of the Army Field Manual for all US personnel engaged in interrogation. While careful to note that these reversals did not touch on the issues of accountability and indefinite detention, in focusing primarily on political and legal contestation during the Bush and Obama administrations, and stressing the overall success of internal and external pushback, norms theorists have partially endorsed a narrative in which US post-9/11 torture is an aberration. To examine how the US government treats its own torture victims, we draw on Neil J. Mitchell's work on atrocity denial. Mitchell's work provides a useful lens for examining Guantanamo, because he identifies the commonly occurring strategies by which democratic leaders avoid taking responsibility for their harms. We find that the strategy of denial is particularly relevant to understanding Guantanamo. Mitchell states that in strategies of atrocity denial, the action may be denied, the existence of the victims themselves may be hidden or denied, or the victims may be denied status and turned into combatants. In our paper, we argue that the systematic denial of the prisoner's status as torture victims, as well as the persistent denial of their fundamental rights to a fair and open system for justice, have transformed the program of CIA torture into an ongoing regime of torture. This regime creates harm in four ways: through ongoing arbitrary and incommunicado detention, through ongoing physical abuse, through the denial of adequate health care, and through drawn-out prosecution in the flawed system of the military commissions. For the victims, the harm is acute because it builds on the edifice of physical and psychological abuse from the period of the CIA RDI program. We view this harm as a regime because it's perpetrated through interlocking and largely bureaucratic action by multiple agencies of state, including the CIA, the Pentagon, the FBI, the Justice Department, and the White House. To make these arguments, this paper starts by providing an overview of norms literature on torture in the War on Terror and how our regime of torture argument relates to this existing work. We provide a brief account of our research methods, especially how we have navigated ethical issues associated with doing work on torture and collaborating with legal teams who face heavy penalties should they breach Guantanamo's classificatory regime. We then set out the US's obligations to torture victims under international law and provide some background into the lives and torture of the remaining prisoners. In the second half of the paper, we provide a detailed account of the ongoing abuse at Guantánamo Bay. We then explain why we view this abuse as the outcome of a deliberate effort to extend the prisoners' incommunicado detention and shield the CIA from scrutiny. We conclude with a call for more scholarly circumspection when studying the CIA RDI program, particularly in relation to claims that the US no longer engages in torture. Until the US is prepared to come clean about the nature of its practices and stop shielding those responsible, the CIA RDI program will have a legacy consisting of ongoing abuse and the corruption of a wider set of US institutions. That's all from us. We hope you enjoyed watching this video abstract and that it gets you interested in reading the article as a whole. Thanks.